Hello, we'll be starting in about 9 minutes, it looks like. So, enough time to get a cup of coffee, get a soda, or what have you. Um, in the meantime, too, if you could put down where you're viewing the webinar from, that would be greatly appreciated. I always like to know where everyone is coming from. Like I said, we'll be getting started in looks like 8 minutes now. Hello, how is everybody doing today? If you can hear me, if somebody could put in the chat you can hear me, that would be great. Can you all hear me? Oh, good. Yes. Thank you, Jose. We'll be getting started in about 2 minutes. Good morning, good afternoon. How is everybody doing today? Check my delay from the live stream to response. I'm not quite sure what that means, Douglas. If you could explain, that would be very helpful. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening to some of you. And okay, ask a question and track 30 seconds before you reply. Okay, who here is from Florida? Is anybody from Florida or Texas? Those are the two places that I grew up in. Okay, great. It looks like I may have a bit of a delay. I'm trying StreamYard this time to do the live stream. People told me that it was a great platform to use, and so I'm not really sure about how the lag or anything else is. So Mark from Dallas, Texas. I grew up in Mesquite, Texas, but I'm not sure how the lag is with between StreamYard to LinkedIn to everything else. Frisco, Robert, I know where Frisco is. Very familiar with Frisco and all. Let's get started. So I only have an hour and I have a lot of stuff to show you. And I wanted to make sure I take the time to make the most of your time and also to bring you some value. So as I said at the very beginning, my name is Johnathan Lightfoot. I am the president of Symbiont Incorporated. This year marks our 40th year in business. The company was started back in 1985 by my grandfather. My father took over, and I am now the third generation of our family to run Symbiont. Traditionally, we were a government contractor, so we did a lot of work with United States government agencies, departments, or what have you, and it's been very successful to say the least. Right? We've been around for 40 years. When I took over the company about 4 years ago, I started seeing a shift, and I wanted to bring the company into that shift. And one of the parts of that shift was noticing the rise of AI and or artificial intelligence. I'm sorry, I always use abbreviations, and people tell me I have to define them first. And This started for me back in 2016. So that was back when well, we didn't have ChatGPT or any of the tools that we have right now. So back then, it was reading a lot of academic papers, reading some between the tea leaves, if you will, of some manuals that were coming out, some of which were coming from companies like NVIDIA, Microsoft, as about what was going on. And the very first instance where I really started dealing and programming and developing in AI was around chatbots. And back in 2017, I want to say it was, I actually did a course on Udemy, and it's actually still there, surprisingly, on how to use Microsoft's bot builder at the time to create chatbots. And so that was my first diving in deep, if you will, into chatbots and AI. It kind of cooled down for me for a little while. I kept up with the academic papers, going to conferences and hearing things, but I really wasn't that active. For me, I felt that it was to a point to where I was waiting to see what was going to happen. Is this going to be something that's going to come out for businesses? And a few years ago, you all may have recalled or remember this thing called ChatGPT hit the market, and everybody went crazy for it. I was one of them. I think it was out for a week, and I was in on it, and I loved it a lot. And I played around with it for about 2 months, and then after that, I got bored with it. Yeah, I really started getting bored with ChatGPT because I was like, yeah, it's pretty neat. You could ask questions and it gives you back these answers, and you could have full on conversations with them. But I just felt like there has to be more. And that's when I started really going back to the books and seeing, well, how was ChatGPT made? And really reading up on what OpenAI was doing, along with some other companies that some of which exist today and some don't, and seeing what was going on. And that around the time I started getting into that, that's when the API or the application programming interface for ChatGPT came out. That sparked my interest back into ChatGPT. Why? Because I realized that now we have the ability to connect systems and processes to this wonderful tool called ChatGPT and actually start getting information out of it. So I worked on that for quite a bit and got really good at it, started teaching it and coaching people around how to use it and all. And I started developing solutions around it. So connecting different interfaces, different programs that you may be familiar with to ChatGPT and other LLMs or large language models, and making it do stuff that was useful. This worked out very well for me. And one day I hit a wall. And that wall, quite simply, was I had these tools and this ability to connect these AI tools together and make them do stuff that was useful. But the problem I was having was trying to find companies or businesses or even individuals who had problems that I could solve with these new models and these new connections I had created. So I started really thinking about this. And one thing that really hit me was, you know, businesses and people, we talk a lot about our problems. And one of the places that we go to is Reddit. Now, Reddit was a surprise for me because, previous to me getting involved, really heavily involved with it about 6 months ago, I really never really thought about Reddit. It was just something that I would go to every now and then for technical problems or technical issues and, pose a question or look to see if somebody else posed it and get answers to help me. But I realized that in Reddit, there is a lot of discussions, or there are a lot of discussions that are held there. And even though I was only looking at the subreddits of tech, AI, artificial intelligence, automation, there were thousands of other communities in Reddit. And I started putting the piece together. So, well, if I go to Reddit for technical issues and other people go to Reddit for technical issues and we help each other out and we get answers, what are the other communities doing? So I actually started diving into other communities in Reddit. things like real estate, entrepreneurship, small business owners, truck drivers, even tow truck drivers as well. And I noticed a thing. There was a lot of commentary in there, and a lot of people were, talking about different things, but I kept seeing people asking for help, or people needing assistance, or people looking to solve a problem that they had. And I was like, well, this is a rich gold mine of automation ideas. If I could get into these different communities and find, sort through and sift through all the conversations, I could probably find people asking for help for their everyday problems. So I actually did a dry run. I actually went into a couple of the environments, and I noticed, yes, people are asking for help and they're looking for solutions in all these different communities. So I started thinking about it. I was like, well, some of these I could come up with a solution with pretty quickly, right? Just reading it, say, okay, if they had a solution that could do A, B, and C, then that would give them a solution to their problem. So I started really looking into it, and I realized that I can't go through every single community on Reddit, sort through all of the, in some cases, tens, if not hundreds of thousands of comments and commentaries to find these solutions or these problems that I could potentially find solutions with. Furthermore, some of these communities I was going into, they were in environments I wasn't familiar with, such as truck driving. You know, I don't know anything about truck driving except for they have big trucks and they're on the highway. And I know to get out of their way when they put their turn signal on. Okay. But other than that, I don't really know what their issues are. So for me to really understand some of them, the questions that they were asking for help about, I couldn't really come up with a solution. So then I had a light bulb moment. I can't do it, but AI can. If I could get the conversations out of AI or out of Reddit into AI could come up with solutions. Maybe. I wasn't sure. So I started, looking around and seeing, well, how can I connect Reddit to an AI? And that's when I started using this tool called n8n. N8n is a very powerful tool for building workflows, as you are able to put together basically processes inside of it and program it to do certain things. And one of the many things it can do, but just one of them is you are able to connect different systems together through their APIs. Now, I knew that Reddit had an API, meaning that was a programming interface. So I knew there was a way to get into Reddit programmatically without having to go and open up a web browser and read everything. So as long as I had that API, I was like, okay, I can connect to Reddit to get those conversations seen, and then from there, I can use n8n to push it through a workflow so that it can do something, come up with the solution, and potentially give me a couple of leads, hopefully, on some automations I could do. I was ecstatic. So I literally spent an entire evening, I mean, from like 6 p.m. to I want to say it was around 2:30 a.m. that I went to bed. And I managed to put together the solution so it could work. So after that, I was excited and I decided to take it on a test run. So before I took it on a test run, I had to look in and see what all could I do, right? So I broke it down into basically three different sections. And these are the first three that are on your screen right now. The first thing I needed the n8n to do, it was to be able to mine Reddit. I wanted it to be able to identify relevant posts using certain strategic keywords in search queries, such as looking for help. Does anybody have, or does anybody know, have a problem, need assistance? Those types of keywords I discovered were actually the keywords that people would use in some of their posts when they were asking for help. Next, after it mined those posts, so let's say it goes to a subreddit, it finds posts like that, then I wanted to take those posts and score it. Figure out, well, are they really asking a question or are they making a statement? How serious do they feel, are they about needing a solution to this problem? And also I wanted to look at things like, well, okay, in Reddit, if you post a comment or something, people can do what's known as upvoting it, right? Meaning they can click the up arrow saying they either agree with it, or maybe they're having the same problem, or maybe they are in some way connected to whatever that poster wrote. So I figured that if I could figure out if this is a real post that they really wanted a solution for, and if there was enough need, meaning enough upvotes of people saying, hey, this resonates with me, then that would be a problem that I would want to go down the rabbit hole, if you will, to try to find a solution. And then the last step is to generate the actual solution. So take that post, discover if this is a real cry for help. Is there enough of a need? Is there enough people saying that I resonate with this? And then I wanted to take the details of that post and come up with a solution, an AI-based solution to that problem. Okay. Now that's as far as I got with the workflow. I'm going to show it to you in a moment, and we're actually going to see it in action live. But there was a fourth step. Whenever I do anything, I always like to do the wow factor, right? What else can I make this workflow do? And the workflow version I'm going to show you today doesn't have the wow factor, but I also want the workflow to, after it's identified a solution, to be able to reply back to the original poster to say, hey, I have a solution to your problem, give them a bit of a teaser as to what that solution was, and then direct them to go to my scheduling page to schedule a free 30-minute consultation so we could talk about how my solution could potentially fix their problem. So by doing those 4 steps, I realized I can scale, right? Because remember, when I first started, I was just simply going to Reddit myself and going through all these different Reddits, looking for problems, coming up with a solution, and then replying back. All of this is happening between my 2 ears, right? I can only do so many each hour or each day. But if I have automation, I could have this thing run almost 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, right? And this would help me be able to find and capture leads. Okay. So I hope that story, even though it's a bit long-winded, resonates with you and can understand the genesis, or where this all came from, where this idea came from for this solution or automation I'm going to show you. Okay. So before I show you the next part, let's actually see the solution in place. So let me do this. I need to share my screen. And there we go, share. All right. So if you've never seen n8n before, don't get intimidated. It's not that much to it. That's funny, right? A computer person always says that when it comes to technology. But let me zoom in a little bit. So this is the entire workflow from beginning to end, right? From beginning all the way to the end. You notice I have a lot of different things going on in here. I noticed in the comments earlier, somebody mentioned AI agents, and you'll even notice in my I'm actually using an AI agent, and we'll go over to what each of these are doing, right? So if I zoom in here, oops, I don't want to move you. Okay. So it all begins with, right now, I do these manually. So I don't have this live. I don't have it in a production way. I just simply go in every few days. I'll click, run this automation and give me some ideas, kind of a thing. So it begins with me just doing a simple click. Then you'll see here, it actually goes to Reddit. So in here, if I open it up, you'll see here it actually is using my credentials from Reddit, and it's looking for posts. It does a search, and it's looking at subreddits. And I can actually tell it what subreddit I want it to do. So in this case, I'm using realtors. But I could actually, let's go to Reddit real quick. I can actually go in here and say, yeah, I want to see something in marketing, right? So all I have to do is simply copy paste marketing, right? And then from there, oops, I didn't share that part. Hold on. Let me share this whole screen. Let's see here. So we're going to present. We're going to share screen again. And I want to share that whole screen. There we go. Share. Right. So here I am back in. So if I go here to marketing, or I can go to any place, I can go in here and say, I want to see, let's say, small business. So So this takes me into the small business Reddit. And in here are all the different posts that are here. I like using the small business Reddit because right now, there are 1.9 million members in here. And currently there's 205 people online. So I can simply copy, paste, let's see here, copy out small business, go back to my automation, and I can actually paste it in here. We'll say, yeah. So I'm telling it to go into Reddit. I want you to look into the small business Reddit. And the keyword I'm looking for in this case, I'm saying, can anyone suggest? I could say I need assistance, or I'm looking for a solution, or does anybody know? Whatever keyword I want. And I have a list of about 12 different words I've seen pop up in these different subreddits where people are asking for help. Okay. Next, I can set how many I want it to go and find. In this instance, for this demonstration, I'm only going to do 5. I've done up to 50 before, but I'm only going to do 5, right? So let's just test this out and see what we get. So if I click test step here, all right. So it says here on my output side, it shows I have 5 items that came in. And here we have someone said, does anyone have a suggestion for what software would fit this use case? They're looking for a problem. They're looking for a solution, right? And if you go through each of these, it's somewhere in there, n8n has identified these are 5 problems that people have identified, okay? So next it has to go through and figure out, hey, is this really a problem or not? So if I open up my if statement, it's actually looking to say, hey, the first thing I want to see is how many upvotes does it have? Here we have it really low. I have it set at 2 for the demonstration. I could change that and say, I want at least 30. If they don't have 30 upvotes, doesn't pass. The next, I want to say, make sure that their self-text, the text they have here, isn't empty. And the last thing is, I'm looking for anything over the last 6 months. I want to make sure that the post that I'm going after is at least 6 months old. Anything older than that, if it was a problem, it probably isn't a problem, or it was solved, or they don't care about it anymore. So I kind of guess about 6 months. Actually, I've actually done this all the way down to a month before, and I've gotten really good results. So if I just test this step, so I'll see here that these all 5 of the original posts that it received, it actually saying, hey, yeah, all 5 of them match each of these requirements. Great. All right. Next step, if I go over here, I have an edit field section. And basically all it's doing is looking to see, okay, let's pull out the number of upvotes. Let's pull out how many subscribers that subreddit has. Make sure we have the self-text or the actual comment that the person wrote, along with what's the subreddit that's coming from, what was the date that they posted it, and also what is the URL of the actual Reddit, right, or subreddit post. Okay, so we're just going to do that quick test step here, and it's now gone and formatted everything so that the next step can take it on and actually do something with it. All right, so from there, it goes up here to this conversation agent. This is an AI conversation agent, and all it's doing is simply taking in that information, right? From here, it also has the prompt. So when you're dealing with AI, especially with LLMs, the magic is in the prompt, right? Even though you might see that it didn't workflow and it's doing all these, has those lines going everywhere and it's following through, that's, oh, hold on. Okay, Douglas, I'm going to give you information about how to contact me about that. But yeah, that would mean I would have to go into something I don't have there's not enough time in this session to go into. But yes, in the if node, you are able to pull out the different pieces that you need. But I can show you briefly. When you're dealing with n8n, one of the things I love about it, and I don't want to mess something up, but I can literally just grab, like on the left-hand side is my input, what's going to come in. I can simply grab that heading, so I'll just say the subreddit. I can drag it into the field that I needed to go into. So if I wanted to say, make sure that the content was at least 200 characters, I could have another if and have it look for that way. But you simply just grab it in and drop it where you want it to go. All right. So next, on the AI agent, like I said before, when you're dealing with LLMs, AIs, the magic is in the prompt, right? Everything happens inside of the prompt. If you don't have a good prompt for your agent or for your LLM, you won't get a good answer. So you might have noticed that if you use something like ChatGPT, Claude, DeepSeek, depending on what you ask or how you ask it and what your input is to it, that will determine greatly what your response is going to be, right? So when you're dealing with automations, especially around n8n or Make or Zapier or whatever you're using, the prompt is very important. So you'll see here in this very first prompt, it says, decide whether this Reddit post is describing a business-related problem or a need for a solution. The post should mention, let me just open this up bigger. The post should mention a specific challenge or requirement that a business is trying to address. And then I'll give it the actual post. So here's the actual Reddit post here. And I ask the question, is this post about a business problem or a need for a solution? Yes or no, right? So all I'm saying is I'm going to give you all this input, but at the end, I just want one answer, yes or no. And you'll see that in the next node. Now, with this agent, I also have a chat model associated with it. So if I open up this chat model, oops, let me go back here. Yeah. Open this chat model, you'll see here I'm actually using, in this case, OpenAI's ChatGPT 4.0 mini, right? It's not a big ask. I'm just saying, hey, I need a yes or no answer. So in this use case, GPT 4.0 mini can handle that rather easily, right? So if I open up this again, I can say test the step, and it's going to go through, process all 5 of those inputs that we received from the earlier. And we'll notice here it's got 5 items. 4 of them are a yes, and 1 is a no. Okay, great. So it took each of those posts, put it through the agent to see, hey, are these actual issues? And so now, if I move on, there we go. Now I do a merge. So it's taking the input from the yes, no, as well as what editing the fields. So now it's actually going to combine them all together into one. And then next it goes to this filter. And the filter is just basically saying, hey, is it equal to yes or is it equal to no, right? Now we know from the previous AI agent, it had 4 yeses and 1 no. So when this filter runs, it's going to allow 4 items to go through and 1 item not to go through. But actually it did a little more. It only kept 3 of the items. And the reason for it is this filter is also looking, not the filter, but beforehand it was looking to see, are these actual posts? So if you remember, when we did the first ask, it said, hey, are these describing a real business problem? Yes or no? And the other filter was saying, hey, do these, all 5 of these match our criteria of, having at least 2 upvotes, being within the last 6 months, as well as if they are 2, 6, and if they had all their fields filled in, right? So when that filter got it, it said, okay, of those 5, we only had 1 yes, and there was 1 that did not pass the earlier filter. So it's only going to allow 3 to come through. Okay. So this is good, because if I had to read these, this would have been almost a waste of my time, right? Because I would have been like, oh, I got to read it, then I got to figure it out. But we can see here in a matter of seconds, n8n along with AI figured out, okay, of those 5, these 3 are good to go that we can work with. So we'll notice here, if they're kept, it sends it up to the summary chain. If they're not, it just holds them, right? So in this, let me zoom out a little bit. So in here, we'll notice there's three different actions that are occurring almost simultaneously, but they're not. They actually occur from left to right, up and down. So it's going to do this first, this one, this one. We'll do the first agent that we have up here. And this agent here is the summarization chain. So it's grabbing the original post, right? And then it's looking to see what can we do with it, right? Now, in this instance, I'm actually using ChatGPT 4.0, not 4.0 mini in this case, but there's another prompt that is saying, hey, I want you to take this problem and I want you to think about what can we do to fix it. So it's going to read this post out for us, and then it's going to figure out what kind of solution could be generated for that problem or whatever that person is asking about. Okay, so we're just going to test the step real quick. And again, it's using ChatGPT 4.0 to do this. And we'll give it a couple seconds. There we go. So in it, it's summarized all of it. So it says here, okay, this first one, we have a small business that's seeking software to monitor file movements on a company-issued laptop, focusing on deletions, modifications, or transfers to external drives. Another one, this user has developed a basic invoicing app for generating invoices, and they want feedback and suggestions for customization. And the last one, you have a business owner that's considering expanding by taking over a nearby competitor's event rental business. And they have questions because they think the business was poorly managed. They're looking to see, hey, can somebody give me some advice on how should I proceed with setting up an arrangement with them to purchase them possibly? All right, so it's all summarized. Now this one's going to go in and say, okay, based on that summarization, I want to know what kind of solution can we give it. So if you'll notice here, again, the magic is in the prompt. Here it says, based on this Reddit post, propose a potential AI-based solution that could be developed to address this issue for this business and similar ones in related industries. That's very key. I didn't want just a solution for that one business. I needed to think wider. Yes, you can make a custom app for one business, but what I'm trying to do is say, well, how can you make it so it addresses that person's problem, but also make a business or an app that I could use with somebody else in a similarly situated situation or environment, right? So then it feeds it the Reddit post. In this case, this one is about the software. And then I gave it an example. The response should be a high-level overview of the AI-based solution, the specific tools or platforms, including no-code automation tools, that could be used to implement that solution, a process flow or step-by-step explanation of how the solution works, a description of the solution in plain English written at a 7th grade reading level, ensuring it's easy to understand. The goal is to provide a clear, actionable, and scalable AI-based solution to address their stated problem, right? So that's the whole prompt. And now it's going to grab each of those three summaries and try to make a solution for them. Let's see how it does. So we're just going to test the step, let it run for a couple seconds. This is actually the longest agent because it has to do the most thinking. But it's not that long. It's still a lot faster than me as a person would be able to do it. Well, anyway, it's going to keep going, but it should be done relatively quickly. But again, so you've seen the workflow to this point, right? It went to Reddit. It went to the subreddit that I told it to go to. I said, look, give me 5 subreddits out of it or sub comments out of it. From that, it was able to determine whether or not those were actual problems or not, as well as filter them to make sure that they were within my time frame, within had enough upvotes, and they had the comments or the interest that it was needed. Then it went through, summarized it, and finally it came up with a solution here. So here for this one, this is the guy who's asking about monitoring file system, right? So it says an AI-based overview, file monitoring and auditing system. The proposed solution is a file monitoring auditing system, FMAS, that tracks changes to files on company-issued laptops. I won't read the whole thing, but down here, just as I told her, I said, okay, give me what tools would I need to do that? So it says different types of tools that would be needed. It's going to look better when I show you to the final part. But it gives me the tools, everything else. And at the very bottom, it actually gives me a seventh grade understanding of it, right? It talks about how it works step by step and explains how it solves their problem. Okay. So now that one's done. After it gets done with that, then it does a sentiment analysis. This is an extra step I put in there. And this is another AI agent. And all it's going to do is, hey, take that comment that somebody wrote, and I want you to look at it and tell me, is this positive, negative, or neutral? If it's negative, I have it set so that it will send an email to my Gmail letting me know, hey, this was a negative comment. I did that, or not a negative, but the way they voiced it was negative. I did that so that when it sends a Gmail message to me, I've discovered that when people sound negative or angry or upset when they're making comments on subreddit, that really is a pain point. That really hurts. That is something they're really, really frustrated with. Now, as a salesperson, I don't get scared of that. I get happy. Why? Because they want a solution. They are really angry and they're really looking for a fix. So this sending me an email says, hey, there's a hot one for you. So that tells me to go in and take a look at the solution and respond back to that person, because most likely I might be able to close them. All right. Finally, it gets all the information. So when it did the summarization and it did the solution, it merged it together so that now they're not two different chains. They're going to put them in one chain instead. And then it puts it to a Google Sheet. So if I open up my Google Sheets, let me move it over here so you all can see it. If I scroll down here, you'll notice I've done a lot of these. But if I scroll down to the end, because it appends it to the end of the sheet, and there was 3 of them, right? Yeah. Which subreddit are you? Oh, I didn't run it yet. I didn't run it through there. So let me run it through here first. So I've run it through all of these, run it through here. We're going to run it through the merge. And then finally, we're going to run it through to the file system. There we go. So now if I go to my Google Sheet, if I scroll down, yep, there's FMAS. So here it is. I can see this subreddit. Let me move it up a bit. Had 2 people respond to it. Here's the actual link to the post. We'll go to it later on. We'll see the actual post words. Here's that summary that we asked it for. And here is the solution. And I have it broken down so it tells me a brief intro about what the solution does, tells me what tools that I would need to build a solution, and then it tells me a step-by-step process workflow of what it does and how it works. Okay. Now, I can take this information and I could go back to our original post. So let's actually go see what they actually wrote here. And here's the actual post from Reddit. We see here they wrote this one's fresh. It's 22 hours ago. And here is the post they did. Now it's just a matter of me walking in and maybe I make a little comment like, hey, what if you had a FMAS system, a file management system that could track your and identify everything he said? And if that resonates with you, give me a call or contact me at this URL to schedule an appointment to speak. Okay. I can run this over and over and over again, and I will always get new responses. I'll always get new ideas that I could always go to. Now, let me go back to my presentation. There we go. All right. So since I've been using the system over the last I think actively 3 months, I've had 2 case studies where it actually happened. So first, we used it for a person who was on a social media platform, and they were having an issue where they were getting their account blocked, right? Because they would put stuff out that was not in accordance with that platform's use policies. So they came on to Reddit. They were complaining about, they didn't think that their post violated anything, but obviously it did. My automation picked up on that, became with a solution where it basically has basically a social post checker, so they can actually create the post that they want to do. They upload it into this automation, which then is able to look at the post as well as the terms and conditions of that platform, in this case, LinkedIn, let's say, and be able to say if there's anything in that post that could be a violation. If there is, it'll rewrite the post for them. So it makes sure it understands what's the core message they're trying to say. It'll rewrite it the way that's more acceptable for LinkedIn, and then they can post it. Now, the good thing about that is, since they've been using it, they just started using it like in December, they've not had a single post flagged or their account suspended or anything like that, and they're happy and all. The second one was using something very similar to the workflow I just showed you, but this was for a I guess you can call them like I guess you would call them a small business integrator, innovator thing. And basically their issue was they would have a lot of people wanting to be entrepreneurs, but they weren't sure what kind of business that they wanted to start, right? And if you remember earlier, I told you when you're dealing with the LLMs, ChatGPT, Claude, DeepSync, whatever, the magic is in the prompt. So we were able to take that exact same workflow I just showed you. We changed the prompt. So instead of it coming up with one solution for a specific problem, it actually created a miniature business plan around creating a business around a problem. Right? Same exact workflow, changing the prompts in it, however, changed the outputs totally. And now they're able to, basically ask the entrepreneur, the aspiring entrepreneur, what their background is, what they're trying to achieve, and things like that. They use this to go and search, in their case, their database. It doesn't go to Reddit. They search their entire database of, issues and problems and concerns that they've seen over the years, and it spits out like, have you ever thought of a business doing this? And then the entrepreneur has that miniature getting started business plan, I call it, and they can build on that and actually build a business and hopefully be very, very successful. Yes, it is recorded. So those are two case studies, and both of those were paid. The first one, they paid me $5,000 to do that one for them, and the second one, that was a nonprofit organization, so they only paid $3,000. But again, we were using mostly their data. It was just a matter of putting n8n on top of it to use the LLM for them. All right, so this is all that I have. I want to open it up to questions. Unfortunately, it looks like I can't bring people up to the stage, but if you have any questions, if you can write them in the comments, I can answer them for you all. So I think, yeah, okay, Doug, I answered your question. Thank you, LinkedIn user, for the answer about the documentation. And yes, Tashika, you're right. There are lots of communities in Reddit for various things. You've been on it for system administration, Linux, and automation. It is very interesting when it's not toxic. There are some times that I read some of those posts, I'm like, oh my goodness. Let me see, any other questions up here? Oh, let's see here. Yes. So for my n8n workflow, I am going to share it. There are only two successful ones. What do you think is the biggest struggle? Can you go into more detail, Innocent? There was only two successful ones. What do you think is the biggest struggle? I don't know if there's a struggle or not. I don't know that part. But if you could expand, Innocent, that'd be great. Would I be open to sharing my JSON for this? Yes, I'm very open. And in a minute, I'm going to tell you how you can get a hold of a copy of it. What are the ABC steps for creating an agent? LinkedIn user, that's N8n it makes it very easy, right? So N8n actually has a module called AI agent, and it's a blank module. It's basically bringing that module onto your blueprint, and then deciding, what chat model you want to use, what type of memory you want it to have. For instance, if I'm using a chatbot, making a chatbot, I might want to have memory in there so that it can remember, that conversation that it's in right that at that point, and also tools. So on my chatbots, or on this one, not chatbot, but in this automation, the AI agent, he was only using one thing, and that was a chat model, right? On some of my other ones, it does use different tools. Like I can make it search the internet, I can make it go to a RAG or a Pinecone database, I can make it look for the weather. I can build or use some of the tools already in there too to make it do whatever I want. It's really easy. And again, I say that as someone with a background in IT. It's really easy to set them up because, like I said, gives you the little box and you just connect what you want it to do. Make sure you give it the right instructions as well, and it gets off and running pretty fast. Okay. Um, Any thoughts on if N8n is going to be stable as a company and survive the VC startup period? I don't know. I've been in IT for over 30 years, so that means I was around during the dot-com era, and I wouldn't hazard a guess, because back then there were a lot of companies during the dot-com era that I would have thought would have made it through that did not, and there are companies that made it through that I didn't even know would make it through. I wouldn't even think they did. So I don't know. I do think that the N8n is they got a good start. I think that they are good foundationally, and as long as they stick with what they're good at and improve on it, I don't see why they shouldn't succeed. Okay, so innocent. Um, okay. So because of course, you're not going to create a solution before you speak to them. Yes, I wouldn't say it's a struggle because I don't really go after a lot. So I only got 2 wins because I only really reached out to maybe 10 people, right? Even though when you saw my spreadsheet, you saw I had hundreds of, have it run through. But some of them I'm just like, I just don't want to work on that project. So if out of the 10 I got 2, that's 20%. So I think that's pretty good. I think if I was to really hammer on it, right? So like earlier in the conversation, I said that I wanted to make it so it automatically reply. I would probably have a higher number of responses back. Both of those responses, when I did them, I got an answer back within 24 hours of them scheduling an appointment with me. So I wouldn't say it's a struggle. It's just, it's something I put together, and I don't really pursue it that heavily. Okay. Donald, when you do get clients from the system and build solutions for it, do you set them up with their own N8n system? Yes. So whenever I'm working with a client around anything, I prefer to set them up with N8n. The primary reason is I'm really big into data privacy and data independence. And I don't really like using other platforms for automations because they're in the cloud, right? And you're going out there into the cloud and storing your data. So luckily, N8n has a self-host feature, which you're able to, and you can install it on a local computer or a local server, and they can run it for themselves and all. But we do offer, maintenance as well and updates to that server. Next, is there a way to automate it further? Whenever new posts and subreddits come up, it identifies them and goes through the rest of your workflow. Yes, the beautiful thing about this is it's not hard coded, right? It's a workflow. So it's a matter of me changing the front end where I could say, instead of making it so I have to trigger it manually, I could say, you know what, every hour or every 30 minutes, go out to this subreddit and look for new posts and see if they match. Other things you could do, like I said at the beginning, I could make it so that it could send the replies off. So once it's coming with that solution, it could just respond back to them with a, hey, I have this solution, blah, 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 blah. Contact me, and it can do that. And I could really, make it go. Other things, I'm working with this product called, well, it used to be called GPT Engineer. Now it's called Lovable. once they bring their API online, which I suspect they're going to do shortly, I could make it actually create a site around that solution that doesn't exist, right? So they could then have a link to go and say, see this marketing copy, web copy of the solution, and make them fall in love with it, and then really make them want to contact me. There's all sorts of different things you can do to expand on it. Do you set up with n8n Cloud or self-host with like, I do self-hosting. I do not use DigitalOcean. When I do the self-host, it's done on a physical machine in their office. So no, I do not use the cloud. Now, if I'd come across a use case where they say, "Hey, we'd like to have it in the cloud," fine. I don't. For me, I'm agnostic to that point. But again, from a data privacy concern and independence, I do advise them like you might want to self-host this internally. Great privacy questions was my follow-up. Love your contributions to Jack School. Thanks for your time. Okay. And yes, Douglas, Lovable is beautiful. I love Lovable. I've been a part of them for a long time, and I think they're awesome. All right. So there were several questions from people asking about, can I share, or would I mind sharing the JSON or what have you? And yes, I do have them shared. Let me see here. All right. I'm a part of the school community called AI Automations by Jack. And on your screen right now, there is a link, an HTTP link to that school community. My apologies. I was going to make a thing you can scan with your phone so you can actually take a picture and go in there, but I couldn't do it in time. But the name of the community is called AI Automations by Jack. Great community. They don't talk a lot about n8n. However, Jack's last video, he did do an n8n solution, so I'm very hopeful for the future. But they deal with something called make.com. Now, earlier I told you I was using n8n. n8n is a workflow automation tool. Make.com is as well. However, make.com is a lot easier to use. It's very visual, very user friendly. They have a lot of modules. One thing about n8n is you have to do some programming. I wouldn't say it's no code. I would call it more like low code. But it gives me a lot more flexibility than Make does in a lot of cases. But if you join Jack's community, he has over, I want to say 65 different automations. And if you're in that community, you will learn step by step almost how to use these automation tools to connect and to make beautiful automations in there. And in fact, we have some people who are, not some, but a lot of people who are making money off of automations that they're doing. And they're actually getting up to speed really fast. And but that's where I'm going to post the blueprint or the JSON of that automation you all just saw. It's not there yet, so you members of Jack's community, I know you're rushing over there now. It's not posted yet. After this webinar, give me a chance to drink something and get something to eat, and I'll post it up there along with the video recording of this. This is not sponsored by Jack or anything at all, but this Jack School is school community is awesome. If you want to learn about AI automation and you don't have a lot of time and you want to be able to come and go, that's a great place to go. He posts, I want to say, 1 or 2 videos every week of new automations and things like that. And I like his way of teaching in that he doesn't teach as much as he shows. So you're building solutions and you're learning different things and all. Okay, so you can go to AI Automations by Jack in his school community, and later on today I will have it posted. I'll ask Jack or Adam if they can pin it to the top, but I don't know if they will or not. Okay, next. All right, so through this webinar, I've gone over where the genesis of the idea for the automation came from. We walked through it step by step. I showed you as each one's working. No, I didn't break it down and say, oh, here's how you program or anything like that. Thank you, Jose. But you could see how an idea spawned into something that can be used, which spawned to what's now close to $8,000 or $8,000 worth of revenue that I've received, and I'm not doing anything. Like I said earlier, to answer the earlier question, I don't have it running automatically. I could, and I probably could get a lot more business from it, but that's just one way of using it. And again, I enjoy doing this because, ChatGPT, as I said, it bored me after 2 months. But now when I've connected with other systems and other ideas and see it produce, I mean, you all didn't see it run in real time, but normally when I run that totally, when I click test and let it run through, it takes less than 3 minutes. And so it's taking a question, summarizing it, coming up with an idea, writing out what that idea is, and then spitting it right back out. And that to me is a awesome experience at all. As I said earlier, the workflow blueprint will be shared exclusively in my school, and not my school community, but in Jack's school community. And it should be up there. It's almost 2 now, so it should be there, I would guess, by, I'm not going to eat that much. So I should be able to have it up by 3 o'clock Eastern time today. Okay. And finally, if you enjoyed or learned something today and you want to learn more, I've already told you about Jack's community and what it does. However, I am not putting together, I'm actually coming out of the first beta of it, an AI automation business bootcamp mastermind. This is 8 weeks of just learning about AI and solutions that you can build. I'm not going to do it as a course where you're going to, have homework and you got to read this and understand this or what have you. It's going to be set up to where each week, we're learning a new automation. So you're going to walk away with 8 different automations that apply to business that you could either expound upon, you could use in your own business, or you could even sell it. And we're actually going to go and break down the automation I went over today as one of our very first for lead generation and all. Right now, I am looking to see if anybody's interested. I'm about to wrap up the very first, I would say, prototype class that we did, which has been really great. I've already helped 3 businesses get up and running really quickly. But if you're interested, you can send me an email to jlightfoot@symbiont.com. That's jlightfoot@symbiont, SYMBIONT.com. And just let me know you're interested, and I will contact you. And we'll set up when our next cohort class will begin. I'm going to limit it to about 10 people because I want to make sure I give personalized support to everyone. It's going to be, like I said, a weekly call. You're going to have workflows. We're going to work on not just the automation side, but also the business side, right? How do you position yourself as an AI automation company? How do you find those leads? This is just one way to find leads. I have a lot of other leads that I have that don't go through this at all. But again, that's through other processes and stuff, as well as how do you position yourself as an expert? This is great for if you're looking as an entrepreneur, as starting a business or expanding your business, or even if you're looking at trying to find employment in the future. We've actually had people in Jack's school community who come back and say, yeah, I didn't know anything about automation 6 months ago, and right now I'm an automation engineer for this company. So again, this is a boot camp, 8 weeks, really get you up and running. And I think it's so good that within the first 3 weeks, you will have your very first automation that you are actively selling. I know that you'll have that done. But anyway, like I said, if you're interested in participating, you can shoot me an email at jlightfoot@symbiont.com, and I will make sure I reach back out to you and get you set up so we can get that cohort started. Anyway, thank you. Thank you so much for attending. I could tell you doing a LinkedIn Live, I was scared to do one because I was scared that, nobody's going to show up. It's just going to be me sitting here talking to myself for an hour. But thank you so much for showing up. Thank you so much for your questions and the activity in the comments and the chats. Unfortunately, I don't have anybody assisting me, so it's been me trying to do it all together at once, but it's been great because I can see everybody who's been participating, and I really appreciate you all. And thank you for joining me, and I'll give you 3 minutes back of your day. Thank you. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye. Thanks, Eric.